Welcome back. Today's conversation is one that I'm honored to share with you. I'm talking with Koli, someone who's navigated a staggering amount of loss from a very young age. Losses she describes quite accurately as senseless. In this episode, we're leaning into the reality of what it means to carry grief over a lifetime. On top of the physical deaths, you'll learn that Koli is also living with MS. She talks about the grief of this diagnosis and what it has taken from her. Although I really try to bring in a variety of different guests on my podcast, I know sometimes it can feel like people really have it all together, that people have figured this whole grief thing out. But today, you'll hear a very raw, unfiltered way of processing. We often expect stories of loss to be delivered in a certain polished cadence, but grief is rarely a smooth performance. This conversation is a bit shorter and more concentrated. Part of that is because I wanted to respect the very real energy it takes to revisit these chapters of a life. And if this community stands for anything, it's showing an authentic, raw version of what grief can really look like. What you're about to hear is the honest, unvarnished sound of someone telling their truth with the energy they have. So, here is my conversation with Koli. This is Nothing Happens for a Reason. Well, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Koli. I'm 33 years old. I'll be 34 in July. I'm a poet. I'm working on getting disability.
Disability for what?
For MS.
For MS.
And for some psychiatric conditions.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been diagnosed with MS for?
It's 10 years this year.
10 years. Okay, so you were 23 when you were diagnosed.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've been living with it for a decade.
Yeah.
How has that changed your life in those 10 years?
Well, it's taken a lot from me. I no longer drive because I had a really bad flare a couple years ago because I have a relapsing remitting MS. So I had a really bad flare a couple years ago. My balance was just really off. And even though I'm doing better, I don't feel comfortable driving.
Yeah.
It's taken my balance. I had to learn how to walk again. It took my speech for a while. And just everything.
Yeah, it robs you of a life that you thought you were going to live, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know that you also, reaching out to come on the podcast, MS is one form of grief. And I also know that there's been lots of other grief for you. So do you mind sharing? Maybe we start with kind of where your grief journey begins.
So I think my first run-in with grief, not my first run-in with death, but my first run-in with grief was when my stepmom Ellie died. She died from ovarian cancer when I was 12. And I didn't understand it, and it took my faith because I couldn't understand why such a generous, loving God would take my stepmother from me.
And what did your faith look like before Allie died?
I was Catholic, so I was going to church every week with my grandmother, who was also Catholic. And Ellie happened to die the same day as Pope John Paul II, within hours of each other. Yeah.
And so when you said that the death of Allie took your faith, like what happened to your faith after that? And you said, I heard you say like the questioning of why this would happen, but what did that evolve into?
So I kept going to church mainly because my grandmother made me, but it wasn't the same. And then I moved back in with my mother when I was 13. I didn't go to church for a long time. And then I went to a non-denominational Christian church, trying to find that spirituality again, and found it a little bit until they started preaching anti-LGBTQ things from the pulpit. Which the priest that was at the Catholic church I was going to when I was younger didn't do. My mom was a lesbian. Ellie was her partner, and she helped raise me. But after that, I just stopped going to church in general.
I can imagine that was like such a confusing time to be raised one way with Catholicism, question a lot of things about it after the death of Ali, try to find spirituality and connection somewhere else, and then be in a place that was not an open, welcoming place that represented your values, and then feeling like that was kind of robbed from you too, like the layers within that of trying to find community and just not finding it at that point, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And so after Ali died, how did you witness grief within your mother?
It was weird because Ellie and my mother had been broken up for quite a bit. So, like, there was still that, like, sadness, but I don't think it was as much as it would have been if they had been together still.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they weren't together anymore, but it sounds like you had maintained a relationship with her.
Yeah.
And is it Ali or Ellie?
Ellie.
Ellie with an E. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So you maintain a relationship, and you said that she died from ovarian cancer.
Yeah.
How long did she struggle with cancer before she died?
She was diagnosed when I was 10 or 11, so 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, it's a hard one. My mom died of ovarian cancer,
I'm
so
sorry.
thank you. Yeah, it's incredibly painful. I mean, all of it is, all death, all cancers. But that one, I remember when I got the call that she had been diagnosed immediately, which I did the thing you're not supposed to do, and I took to Google, and it was like, I think it was like 1 to 4% people live, and I just like remember like throwing my computer across the room because it was like not the statistic obviously I wanted to see. So yeah, it's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And so with Ellie dying, you went on a journey of trying to find religion, spirituality, because that was a secondary loss. It sounds like something that was kind of taken from you or very much altered in the wake of that.
Yeah.
And then where did your journey go after that?
And then a month to the day after Ellie died, my paternal grandmother died.
And how did she die?
I don't remember. It wasn't old age because she was only in her 60s.
Yeah. And you said 1 month after Ellie
Yeah.
died?
A month to the day.
Okay. Had you had a relationship with her at that point?
I did, but it was different than the relationship with my maternal grandmother. I was closer with my maternal grandmother than I was to my paternal grandmother. And something that these two had in common was I didn't get to say goodbye to either of them.
What does that bring up in you, not having that opportunity?
It's just like there was no closure there.
Yeah. What do you think closure would have felt like if you were given the opportunity?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because throughout my grief journey, the only one I really got to say goodbye to was my maternal grandmother. But yeah, everyone else kind of died without me getting to say goodbye. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah.
What do you feel like has been the biggest difference in your grief for the multiple people you weren't able to say goodbye to and the one you were? Obviously, besides the reality that you were able to say goodbye, like what else has been different?
I find that I'm able to go through the 5 stages of grief a little easier, right? And I know that the 5 stages of grief weren't technically for those who lost somebody, but those who were dying. But we so often tell people, oh, well, you have to go through the 5 stages of grief to, get over the death. And I felt like I was much easier able to slip into those 5 stages than with, like, Ellie, my paternal grandmother, my mother, it just, yeah.
As a therapist and someone in the grief space, I love that you know about the history, right, of the 5 stages that are meant for the terminally ill and the people in their dying process. But I find the 5 stages to feel so minimizing. There's so much more, and I think what you just said for so many people is like the misconception that the 5th step, right, acceptance means that, and the word used, right, like that I'm like over it. And yeah, I don't think we're ever over it. And I don't think that we're just like done.
Yeah. There's a meme that I saw on Facebook, and it's a giant ball meant to represent grief. And then in the first iteration of it, the ball shrinks. And then in the second iteration, it's in a jar, and the jar grows. So we grow around our grief. We don't grow out of our grief.
Yeah. I've seen those images before and I love those images. I think that's right. That's very much my experience is as I keep growing and moving forward, I'm also very careful. I don't like move on, I move forward. That yeah, my grief comes with me,
Mhm.
but it doesn't necessarily get smaller. I grow around it. Like I view grief very much like other conditions. Like it's like a chronic thing. Like I'm gonna carry my grief forever. It's gonna change, it's gonna evolve. It's not going to feel the same as
Right.
it did 5 years ago, but it's still there. And I think that so much of this work and these interviews talking to amazing people like you is as also hopefully increasing some of the grief
Mhm.
illiteracy in our
Yeah.
society that like it's not like, oh, it's been 5 years, why aren't you over it? It's that's not what it's about. And yeah, the more we can talk about it, I think hopefully it helps people.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because right, you're saying some of the differences between the people you weren't able to say goodbye to versus the one that you were able to,
Mhm.
and saying that the one you were able to allowed you to kind of work through, right, some of the stages in a different way. However, it's also the one that it sounds like is most impactful still for you.
Mhm. One of the two that are most impactful.
One of the two. What's the other one?
My friend Natasha, she died on Halloween of 2024, from ALS, and I've that one's hit me hard.
What do you do with the heaviness of both your maternal grandmother and Natasha?
I cry a lot.
Yeah.
Seems to be the only way I can get out the emotion.
It's good that you allow yourself to feel.
Yeah.
I know it's probably expected coming from a therapist, but feeling it is something that I think a lot of people don't do, right? We want to like avoid difficult emotions and numb it and sometimes unhealthy ways to not feel. And so allowing yourself to like cry and sit with it, I think is exactly one of many ways to be able to honor our grief.
I know last Halloween, I did nothing but cry. Like, I
Yeah.
cried all day,
And that was the 1 year.
and that was the 1 year.
Yeah.
And I usually have a ritual on Halloween that I do. I watch Practical Magic with my best friend, and, like, we watch long distance because she's in Georgia and I'm in Jersey, but I didn't do that last year. But,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a nice tradition, though.
yeah,
Was your friend in Georgia understanding of why you took last year off?
yeah.
Yeah. What has your support looked like through these losses?
It's funny because with my mom, when she died, I stayed up at my grandparents' where I currently live for the week just to get myself back to a place where I could function. And when my grandmother died, my maternal grandmother, I stayed down in Ocean County with some friends for a week so I could get to a place where I could function. And during that week, I lost a job I loved. I got fired.
So, another loss.
Yep.
So, just so our listeners can really understand kind of the weight of the cumulative grief. So, your stepmom Ellie died, your paternal grandmother died, your biological mother died.
Mhm.
And how did your biological mother die?
We don't actually know. The autopsy was inconclusive. It was either a blood clot or an overdose. We're not sure which one. She had actually had surgery 2 weeks prior,
Oh my
putting
gosh.
a new cement block in her leg with antibiotics to kill the MRSA so she could get a new artificial knee.
So, two very totally unrelated possible outcomes of how she died. Wow. What do you do with the like uncertainty of that? How has that felt to not know?
That wasn't the issue that I had in grieving my mom. My mom was emotionally abusive my whole life, and I didn't realize it until after she died. When I was sitting with my therapist at the time, and I said something my mom said, and she's like, "That's not normal."
Mm,
And so I didn't know how to grieve the loss of a woman who hurt me so much. And I finally was able to grieve her. I grew around that grief, right?
Yeah.
There are still times, like her birthday, death anniversary, that are hard. I mean, my maternal grandmother and Natasha are harder.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's because they're the ones that are most recent.
Yeah, I really appreciate you mentioning the like complicated dynamic with your mom, and something that I am also really passionate about educating and talking to people about is just because a relationship was complicated or toxic or abusive doesn't mean that there's not grief, right? I think so often people think like, oh, you only grieve people that you had a healthy relationship with or that you love deeply or unconditionally. It's not true. It's just complicated. It's different, but
Yeah,
there's still so much grief with it.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I again really, really appreciate you mentioning that it was complicated, was emotional abuse with her. And that has made the grieving process look different than
yeah.
other losses that you've had. Yeah. So, okay, biological mom died,
Mhm.
and then maternal grandmother died.
Yeah.
Okay. And what year did maternal grandmother die?
2021.
2021. Okay. And how did she die?
She died from Alzheimer's.
Okay.
So that's a different kind of grief in and of itself. It's the long goodbye. It's
The anticipatory and ambiguous grief that is very much part of an Alzheimer's dementia loss. How long did she struggle with it before she died?
she started really getting sick like 6 months before she died.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It was quick
Really quick.
because I know I was hospitalized in June of 2020.
Did she forget who you were
At the end, yeah.
at the end? What was that like?
It was really hard. I went to go see her in the hospital because she had gotten a bed sore removed, so I went to go visit her in the hospital. She just didn't know who I was. Every question I asked her was like, "Yeah, mhm, yeah," and that was her response to everything. And I remember going to visit her the last time before she came home on hospice. She was having trouble breathing, and so I went and got the nurse, and I was like, "My grandmother's having trouble breathing. Can you do anything for her?" And the nurses came in along with the respiratory therapist, and they're like, "Well, I don't really want to do anything for someone who's DNR or DNI."
Hmm.
And I knew she was DNI because she'd been DNI for years. She used to get pneumonia all the time, and she was
Hmm.
DNI from that. So that I knew. I didn't know about the DNR. I called my aunt and I was in tears, just saying, well, they said Mimi's DNR, and she got upset. She called the hospital in a fit of rage, and she's like, my mother's not DNR. How could you, like, this, that, and the other thing? And finally, my grandfather was like, "Well, we discussed it. She's DNR." And it's like,
Wow.
you need to let us know these things.
Yeah. Was your grandfather present for all of this?
Yeah.
Wow. So you learned in that moment
Mhm.
that some changes had been made to like her end of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she died soon after that.
Yeah, she came home on hospice, and 3 or 4 days later, she was gone. And I just have this vivid memory of after she died, them putting her in a body bag, and that image is, like, burned in my head.
Yeah. I can very much relate to that. It's a fucking horrible last image. Yeah, it's been something I've had to work on in my own therapy too, of just like having other images and not just focusing on that one with my mom after she died and being taken out. But it's so hard. It's just like not the memory I wanted. It's so painful.
Yeah.
You were able to say goodbye to her though?
I remember it was the night before the night of that she passed. I whispered to her, "It's okay, you can go. I'll be okay."
It's really, really hard to say those words. At least for me, they are.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that moment with my mom was incredibly hard because from the hospice workers, sometimes people are holding on,
Yeah.
and I didn't want my mom to suffer anymore, but I also like didn't want her to go. And so I didn't want to say the words because I didn't believe it. And so I've talked before about like the deep pain and grief of me feeling like one of the last things I said to my mom was a lie because
Yeah,
I did not believe it in that moment.
yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so painful.
The thing that I did with my mom and my grandmother is I got memorial tattoos for them.
Mm.
I have a 72 behind my ear for my mom. She played in the Independent Women's Football League,
Oh my gosh, cool.
for a couple years, and by played, I mean she sat on the sidelines because she injured herself the first practice. So I got her football number behind my ear, and I got
Mm,
that for my grandmother.
that's beautiful. I find I talk to so many people on this podcast about the different tattoos that we get to honor our loved ones. I have a whole half sleeve that's about my grief journey with my mom and two others for my sister, and it's definitely been something that has been special to me and obviously so many other people too.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get one for Natasha. I'm gonna get a DNA helix for her. I met her because she was a huge advocate of the backlog of untested rape kits, clearing the backlog.
Mm,
So I want to get a DNA helix for her.
wow. Well, so she sounds incredible.
She was.
And you said she died of ALS.
Yeah. And I remember at the funeral, they were saying that she, up until the end, she truly believed she would beat it.
Hmm.
Even though no one has before, she believed she was going to be the one to beat it.
What do you feel about that story?
That's Natasha.
Hmm.
That's very Natasha. I was in awe of her up until the end.
Yeah. Like, how do you hold space for so many losses, Koli? Your life in so many ways, like, I don't want to say it's been defined by loss because I'm not here to say whether or not how you define your life, but it's been woven in, sounds like, to your life for a very long time.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you do with that even just sitting here right now, like, knowing that you are somebody who's been impacted by so much death in your life?
It's definitely hard.
Yeah.
I've noticed that with every death, my anxiety gets a little bit worse.
Mm,
I have generalized anxiety disorder as it is, but with every death, it gets a little bit worse. And I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with that
mhm.
and deal with it in a positive and productive way. I'm to the point now where I cry over like everything because my anxiety is just that bad.
And not that we always are cognitively aware of, like, the origin of our anxiety, but when you say it's gotten worse, like, is it, like, death anxiety has gotten worse for you around, like, your mortality or losing anyone else or just, like, it is still just more generalized?
It's more generalized, but some of it is around losing like my aunt.
Okay.
Because my aunt drives me everywhere. My aunt makes sure I'm seen by the best doctors that I can be,
Mhm.
and she, like, advocates for me because I'm terrible at advocating for myself. So, like, losing her would devastate me.
Yeah, so there is some, like, even if it's not super rational in this moment, but, like, anticipatory fear
Yeah.
around, like, if she were to
Mhm.
die, like, soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, especially if you rely on her so much.
Mhm.
What do you think the reason was for you reaching out to me and wanting to come onto the podcast?
I wanted to let people see that even with so much grief, it's possible to live a life as much as you can.
Why do you think it's important for you to share that part?
Because I know how hopeless it can feel, and I want people to understand that there is hope.
Mm, yeah. Where do you think you find your hope, Coley?
I don't want to be cheesy and be like SVU, but like in a way, that has always been my hope. When I lived with my mom and lived in that toxic environment, SVU was my hope.
Mm. What do you think grounds you about SVU?
Um, I'm a survivor myself, so it's like they usually get the bad guy more often than not.
And for people listening,
Mhm.
the few people in the world who don't know what SVU is, will you share what it is for people?
Law and Order Special Victims Unit. They work on investigating sex crimes.
Yeah, so there's something like almost a corrective experience for you watching SVU and talking about it that feels like, yeah, there's hope
Mhm.
that justice can exist and healing can happen despite really traumatizing, crappy situations.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put different hope on you also, but to me, reaching out to be on here and wanting people to not feel alone and know that there is hope. I can imagine that also might give some hope to you, like being of service and sharing your story,
Yeah.
knowing there could be an impact.
Yeah.
So that's really important too. Because it's hard stuff. Life is fucking hard, especially when there's been so much trauma and loss like you've been through, Koli. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot. And then put a MS diagnosis on top of it, where there's layers of other grief too. Like,
Mhm.
it's amazing that you're wanting to put energy to helping other people
Yeah.
and wanting to be like present in it, even though it's hard to look at.
Mhm.
It's really incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have kind of like a closing question I wrote for you.
Yeah.
From the intake that you filled out expressing interest
Mhm.
to come on, you talked about like as a child, as a teenager, as you were starting to lose people, you didn't know how to make sense of any of it. It's if you could go back to that younger version of yourself after the first two losses that were 20-ish years ago,
Mhm.
what's the one thing you would want to tell her about the senselessness that she was going to face and hope you could leave with her?
I
It's okay. You can take a breath. You can take your time.
I would just tell her that no matter how many people you lose, not to lose yourself.
Mm, wow, that's really beautiful. Somebody who's gone through a lot of different versions of yourself, from someone raised in Catholicism and searching for faith and running into different barriers and walls to feeling truly seen. And grief can really make us feel like we lose ourselves. And so you wrote in that intake about, connecting with the name of this podcast because maybe we've searched for like, what is the reason or finding sense to things. And then maybe coming up with like, there's fucking no sense, right? The senselessness of it. However, what you just said again was really beautiful around like, don't lose yourself in this. And we might lose parts of ourselves in grief, but like stay connected to the core.
Yeah.
When we feel really untethered, that's normal. It's going to happen. But like, how do we come back to ourselves?
Mhm.
Thanks for that. I love that. I think it's an important message.
Yeah.
Well, Koli, I really appreciate you reaching out to come do this. And I think that the more you can share your story with lots of different types of loss, again, physical deaths in your life, relationship, bodily changes from MS, mental health, there's so much here, and you wanting to show up for others today by doing this interview and showing up for yourself too. And I just think it's really special. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for another episode. If this conversation helped you feel less alone, there are a few ways to stay connected into this community. To stay updated on everything we're doing, you can subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on Instagram. If you're feeling the digital fatigue and looking for support that you can actually hold in your hands, please join the waitlist for the Echo Registry. Our Pen Pal project is for anyone tired of connecting through screens and looking for the tactile connection of writing to another grieving human. And of course, you can grab the free ebook, Let Me Know If You Need Anything, and other things to stop saying right on the website. And lastly, if you haven't yet, please take a second to rate and review the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It's a small act that makes a massive difference in helping other grievers find this space. Take care of yourself, and I'll be back next week with a brand new episode.